Hi, I'm Carole Robinson. Welcome to this edition of County Happenings, where we find out what's happening in the county by chatting with the county mayor, who knows it all.
I don't know that I know it all, but sometimes we just fake it.
Yeah.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. Pretty day, pretty weather, but boy, we need rain.
We do need rain. I just heard recently that, of course, during the month of April and had record mountains in May, we're already below, and then the first weekend in, I guess it's the first weekend in May, had snow up north and out west, and so far we've kind of ridden out the storm. I hate it for Texas,
those tornadoes
and things like that. But we've got a lot of things going good for us in Williamson County, and I'm always thankful that always thankful that we don't have bad weather.
Yeah. The tornadoes have been really hitting Oklahoma and Texas and Arkansas pretty bad.
And I guess you realize that
5 years
ago we
on
had
my grandson's birthday, the day he was born.
I did not realize that.
May 2nd.
That we had one of the worst floods that we've ever had in the Williamson County area, and so we've really stepped up a lot of our efforts to address some of those needs that we were lacking in back in those days, and new building, new equipment, and things like that. So we're very proud. Let me give you a cough drop.
Thank you very much.
Or maybe some water if we get staff to do it. But we've done a lot of things that hopefully, and it will happen again at some point, that we can be better prepared. And we all learn from situations all over this county.
Yeah, we've had, you moved the Station 14 to the LoJack building.
Yes.
Groundbreaking for another fire station in Goose Creek. Public safety buildings going up, and
lots of things going on in the area of fire and public safety all over this county. You mentioned the three. We took the old LoJack building, converted it over to the fire station for the 5 Points location, which will help tremendously when we get to that point that we're fully operational. There's just some water.
thank you so much.
And some of the other things, we're building a new fire station down in the Goose Creek area, our public safety building. So there's a lot of efforts going on. We're also working with Franklin City out at the Ag Park. We got a temporary fire station out there on county property. We did some horse trading with the city. So the residents over in Ladd Park will see a reduction in their homeowner premiums because they'll be closer to a fire station. And we're trying to do memorandums of understanding with several of our other locations. So it's a jigsaw puzzle. If you laid it out here on this table and you're putting one piece here and one piece there, eventually you get to the full picture of what you're trying to develop. And then about the time you get that done, you just pick it up, throw it away, and start all over on something else.
Well, I do know one of the things that the county is striving for with the fire stations is to make them more appealing to the volunteers to spend time there.
Sure.
And I witnessed that the other day when I was taking a tour of it for a story I'm doing about the station. When Tim Hood was there and a couple of volunteers were hanging around, they got a call and boom, they were gone. Now, if they had to come from home and get that, there would have been another 5-10 minute delay.
Yeah, and what that also does, you take a young person, mid-20s, on a fixed income, trying to go to school. Oftentimes we can provide living quarters for them, and their contribution back is be there at night to make those fire calls. As you know, in any of our cities, where you're talking Brentwood or Nolensville or Franklin or Spring Hill or Thompson Station or Fairview, they have paid fire men and women that man it 24 hours, 365. Right. The county's all volunteer. And so there's an inherent problem just by having that, but to provide full fire protection away in every single corner of our county is almost cost prohibitive at this point in time.
Right.
So thanks be that
we have the volunteers.
We do have those volunteers. And a piece that a lot of people don't realize in our cities, there are also EMTs, that the men and the women that ride on the fire apparatuses oftentimes are there about as quick as the ambulances. And so, but the ambulances do our whole county. That's part of Williamson Medical Center. And the county, we pay for a lot of those cost associated with an agreement we have with the hospital so that we can purchase equipment, and they take care of the manpower, the woman power. And they have about 110 people, and their response time, they want to get to, on the ambulances, they want to get to everyone within 6 to 8 minutes. Some are 10 or 12, some are less than that.
So putting them with these new fire departments
makes
sense, yeah.
But it's a very difficult, it's a fine line you often do. You've got one city that may be provided 100%, but the city taxpayers and ask that ambulance to go in there might make it a little bit crowded. But for the most part, our ambulances are roving all the time, and so where you live in Fairview, if an ambulance has to go to your house to do an emergency call, then the others just broaden out their scope and fill in that gap until this one's back. Well, you've always got 1 or 2 ambulances running to the emergency room, going to your house, going to my house. And then every now and then we have one that breaks down. So it's a full time. It's a full time.
Juggling all the time.
It's a juggling all the time for Alan Lovett and Williamson Medical Center to keep those vehicles well tuned and maintained and satisfying our citizens. Because when you really go to 30 or 40,000 feet and look down over our county, there's a lot of square miles.
There are, and there's a lot of square miles with a lot of space in between.
Yes. In the cities, which I think the last number I saw, Franklin probably accounts for about 45%, I think that's right, of all the calls that the ambulances run on.
Wow.
And it was because you got the concentration of people.
Right.
You've got, I think it's right at 70,000 people live in Franklin City. And then Brentwood is probably 45, 50,000, so that would be next. Spring Hill. So you take areas like you and I live in the unincorporated area, way out in Fairview, and me way out on Del Rio Pike. You know,
it's 10.
We just don't have the volume of people living there, whereas you get one apartment. They may have 200 or 300 people. There's always somebody subject to burning themselves. People still do cook, don't they?
Not in my house.
Okay. But if they do, you know, there's need for that. But you always have a child, and I kind of think that gets injured, and I think that's important at Williamson Medical Center, that just in the next 60 or so days, we will see the Monroe Carole Children's Hospital of Vanderbilt being placed at Williamson Medical Center. It's a mouthful.
Long.
We'll abbreviate it.
I hope so.
But, you know, that's an effort that took nearly 5 years just to get the copyrights, the logo, and the agreement signed between Vanderbilt out of Nashville to allow a children's hospital, Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, out at Williamson Medical. That's never been done. And
so how was that approached? Did somebody from Williamson Medical Center approach?
there was a bunch of us that started saying that would be good for our community, and I'm sure Hendersonville would say the same thing, and Clarksville. But to Vanderbilt, stop and think, most everyone knows where Children's Hospital is downtown Vanderbilt, in between the veterans. There is no more land down there.
There isn't.
So when they get ready to expand, they have to buy a Kentucky Fried Chicken or a service station, level it. Well, that costs money. And they buy it as an ongoing business only to level it, and they come back with a hospital. So if you can come out here and put that same building without those front load costs and get that, and plus it eliminates
and it's closer
parking.
to the people.
It's closer to the people. Now, the Children's Hospital that's going in at Williamson Medical Center, that'll be opening up here in July, it's not made to handle long-term health issues of children. There'll be a pediatrics emergency room, and there'll be about 20 rooms that will be associated. So when we have I hope no one's eating supper or breakfast at this time, but if you have a compound fracture on a soccer field, you now can go over here and have that repaired and cosmetically have that done as opposed to going all the way to Nashville. How we look, our legs, our backs, our shoulders on injuries is very, very important cosmetically.
Right.
My age generation, if you got hurt, they just sewed him up. Or
You
his
kept
mama
a
said,
crooked
poured,
finger the rest of your life.
That's right. It had a crooked, and I do have one of those. Or they just poured Mercurochrome on it, and when it quit hurting and bleeding, you were all right and keep on going. You only went to hospital when it was life and death, and that's not the way to do it.
Right.
So,
they'd rather see you in between that so they can save your life.
And I think children today, parents are not that my mother didn't love me, because I had the best mother. I've said that for years. My mom was the best. But I can also tell you, we didn't go to the hospital very often, as opposed to my grandchildren. My daughter's going to take the grandchildren for just about every sneeze, and check their throats and see if they've got strep or earaches. Back home, you just had an old hot water bottle, hot water, and put it up on your ear, and that relieved it a while, and you fell asleep, and then Mom would get up and fix it again. But again, those are different times.
Right.
Today, it's a much better environment. But the Children's Hospital will be a benefit for all of Williams County, and we'll capture a lot of those Murray and Marshall, Bedford County, Rutherford County folks that can just shoot over and get some repairs going all the way into Nashville. Parking is awful.
Yeah, downtown. So if they even if they expanded, they would be expanding the parking problem. Where doing what they're doing here eliminates the need for people to go all the way downtown.
Hopefully, a lot of statistical data was used in developing this place. It's gorgeous. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Very children friendly, bright, vivid colors. If you go to Children's Hospital in Nashville, as sad as it is, it's a bright environment for those children. So it's just not dull, drab colors. And so my hat's off to Williamson Medical.
And that should cut down on the ER. If you take your kids to the ER in the Children's Hospital as opposed to the ER in the main hospital.
It should. We do have a lot of children that, for various reasons, needs to go to ER. They're just treated different. You and I have got a little gray hair on us. I know yours doesn't show.
Only my hairdresser knows.
There's different procedures and protocols, and everything is specialized today. When I was a young man growing up, and I'm sure there are others that can say this, we went to an eye, ear, nose, and throat doctor. One doctor took care of everything. But today they're all specialized, and that's kind of the way pediatric and children's care anymore, that all of us want this specialization so that we can get in and get out.
Right, right.
But,
so that's one big thing coming up.
well, the other one's a budget.
Yeah.
Every year, July the 1st, we have to have a new budget put in place, and we're about 95% through with the budget as first part of May rolls around. We've got a little disagreement. That doesn't mean that they're right and we're wrong, or we're right and they're wrong. But the schools and the county commissioner are always arguing over dollars and cents.
And that's every year.
It's every year. It usually ends up a happy marriage. We don't quite kiss and make up, but we do.
But you shake hands.
We shake hands and go on. They win some, we win some. But it's all about funding. Schools are into the program side, and county commission's into the funding side, and it's always the same issues. We need a new school building, and the county commissioner is trying to figure out how to pay for it, and want an addition, and the county commission has to figure out how to pay for it, and so capital seems to be let's talk about that a little bit. Capital within the side of the operating budget. About 10 years ago, we started moving more of the capital out of the operating budget, fixing roofs, doing the minor things that you would do, and shifting it over to the bond side, borrowing money to do a lot of 5-year life type things. Computers are a good example. So
yeah, and that's about every 5 years.
Yeah, about every 5 years. So the way we structure that bond, we may put $3 or $4 million into the front part of that bond, and put heavy, what we call front loading, so that at the end of that 5 years, that money that we'd spent for computers had been paid off, because you knew you were going to have to have more computers. A better way to do that is to do capital notes, for an example, or pay for it out of your operating. Well, during the last 10 or 15 years, we had a little recession, housing was flat, taxes were not raised, so we started allowing more of those capital needs. Even during a recession, you need roofs and air conditioning and maintenances on your building, because that's how you make them last. So we began to shift more of those over to a bond, a 20-year bond. And again, paying for them in that 20-year bond in that first 5 to 7 years. But bonds are like your homeowners. Money that you borrowed money on that house, that first house or second house that you built. And they're not real flexible. This is how much you borrowed. This is your monthly payment. and if you don't like that, either pay it off or restructure it. Well, the bonds are the same in government, no different. Whereas a capital note, you may need to just think of it like you're going to go buy a car. You wouldn't think about buying an automobile and putting it on a 20-year note. Well, the car's wheels would be falling off in 20 years. And so although in our lifetime we have seen car notes go from 2 years to 3 years, and now you can
5 years.
You can get 5 and 6 year notes on cars. And so there's kind of 7 years is a magic number. But what we're trying to do is get more of those items that you know you're going to, a busted toilet, a leaky roof, you name it, that you know you're going to have. Same at your house, same idea. In fact, I just got through working on my house, one of the leaky toilets that it just ran all the time. So I went down and got it and fixed it, and did all that. But schools can either do that or they can hire somebody to come in. And so can the county. So let's start putting more money in those, which gives us less flexibility, but the ability. So you borrow a note, and if you, at the end of 5 years, and you thought, well, I'm pretty stressed, I can't do that, because it costs you more in principal, but less in interest over the life of that loan. So if you need another year, you can always pick up the phone and call the local bank, say, I need another year to make this payment. And that's not uncommon, and we never know. When you and I borrow money on a car, that you may have a health condition that comes up that you lose your job, and you may need to go back and restructure it. On a short note, you can do that. On a big long bond, it's a very, very difficult thing.
Yeah. Now, some of that stuff, it used to come out of like the emergency fund. That's not happening anymore? Or?
Well, the schools are, we call a fund balance, and they're required to maintain, so if their budget's $100 million and it's more than that, they're required to keep 3% in fund balance for those emergency things. But at the end of every year, projects aren't finished, more tax dollars come in than what they anticipated, sales tax dollars were up, many, many pockets of money coming into this bucket. And
Everybody
so yes, but they do. But as our schools have grown, we're at about 44, 45 schools now. And in 1 year, because you covered it, we opened 5 schools in 1 day.
Remember
in
that?
1 day.
Yeah.
So when you add 5 schools, that's 5 different locations. You've got maintenance issues, everything from the squeaky door to the window that won't open to whatever. Now, new buildings, you don't have as many of them. But once these buildings get 10 and 15 and 20 years on, they're just like your house. They need some maintenance. And they may be, a window that starts leaking. And you would think, well, the contractor didn't do it good. No, it's just a matter of time and settling. And so, yes, you want to have those funds built in, but there's this temptation, too, to buy those computers and do this and hire another teacher here. So it's constant. It is constant. But overall, I think Dr. Looney and the school board do a very good job. Again, proof is in the pudding. Proof is in the pudding. And if you're weighing things on the results, it's kind of hard to argue with what they've turned out over the last several years.
Yeah, that's true. And and we also have other things going in the budget. The police department needs more for medical care and cars, and I mean, we've got a growing county, so we have all the departments are growing.
Sheriff said the other day, you got to realize there's just one jail in our county. So all the city police, all the people that are arrested, they go to the county jail. That's the only one.
Yeah.
And it's all from.
And the state sometimes wants to use it too.
And the state, if you don't have enough people, the state wants to use it, and they don't quite pay you for what it costs to house a prisoner. But the other day, the sheriff made the comment that they were almost 95% full.
That's getting awful close to.
And it's capacity.
And once they hit that, they get issued by the state.
That is right. So you've got to have a balance. Our fastest growing population are females now. Used to be you just didn't hardly have any females in your jail, and it was all, old men and young men. It was males. But today our fastest growing population is females. And I don't know why, so don't even ask me.
I can speculate.
But so you've got to have a separate division for females and a separate division for males. You've got to have female officers, male officers. They cannot commingle. Then you couple that with our juvenile system. Then juveniles have to stay out of the main jail population. So it's a balancing act going on all the time. More court cases being heard than ever before. More lawsuits, more divorces, more, you name it. And
Well, the
why?
more
Because we're having more
population's
people.
big, yeah.
And sometimes we don't think of that. But the sheriff's budget is broken up into about 3 main divisions. One's the sheriff, and that's his officers. We call that the field division. Then you've got the jail division. Then you've got some other things, the drug and task force. You've got the litter crew that you'll see out on the roads cleaning. And I need to touch on that. If you see the sheriff out with some men and women picking up trash on the side of a road, these are misdemeanor people. These are not hard
hardcore,
people. And
no.
from time to time, we get someone calling in worried that about these men and women picking up trash on the side of the road. And for the most part, all of them are judged to be not a flight risk. They're misdemeanors. Oftentimes, they're men and women that may have had too much to drink and traffic offenses, can't pay their bills. What's the one where you don't pay child support, whatever that's called? You know, we go pick them up and they have to serve time until they can figure out what to do. But a lot of those people are out working, but there's still supervised guards out there monitoring them. But never ever would you have a felon or any hard case. I don't know what it is. We're all having to drink water today. Thank you.
It's the air, it's dry.
So the sheriff's budget is one of those large budgets too, and it continues to grow as our community grows. In our schools, we have SROs.
Yeah, that was a big surprise thing that happened several years ago, but it's a continuing one.
And it's getting to the point now. I mean, most of our high schools will have 2 SROs in them now.
Really? They're
Middle
still
school, they're so big, and it's just too much for one officer to take care of. So if we've got 44 schools, though in special school district, I think they've got 6. We've got 50 men and women for 9-10 months out of the year that are at school every single day. And those men and women take vacation, they get sick, they need time off, so you have to have replacements. And the sheriff's style is you work in the jail division and you move your way up to finally get to be a patrol officer. Some men and women, just like some are better reporters than others, love the SRO, where they can be in the school setting and get the confidence of these kids and do those kind of things. So, I mean, the sheriff does a wonderful job. Our police chiefs do a great job, and it's a constant battle to balance that. And you know, it's so sad what's happening across the United States. Distrust, some police officers not operating the way they should, conducting themselves in a professional. And then we've got the other side where police officers are being literally senselessly shot and killed and murdered. And what a job these men and women have to protect us from the general public. And you just never know where something's going to come out of the wild blue. And so I think I really sincerely mean that all of our law enforcement, cities and counties, state, federal, they're special people. And yes, you do have 1 or 2 that every now and then do the wrong thing. But the majority of those men and women in the uniform
Well, you
are doing an
consider the number of
outstanding job.
police officers that do the wrong thing compared to the people they have to deal with that are doing the wrong thing.
And
The
we're
percentages are-
editorializing. Maybe we shouldn't do that. But the fact of the matter is there's more good, and we know that. We have got a very secure and wonderful community.
We do, and but we can't take that for granted.
No.
And unfortunately, with everything going around, these officers have to be aware that this is a great community, but there could be something snaps in somebody. And
I've often been told the worst call that the law enforcement wants to make is a domestic violence call, because both of them are very volatile. You don't know what's going, and you knock on the door, and
it may be you in the middle of it.
May be you in the middle of it. Parks and Recs continue an area that grows. As you know, in Nolensville, we opened up a new facility over there. We're constantly looking for new opportunities. I encourage everyone to check with Parks and Rec about playing pickleball.
Yeah.
Yeah, brand new sport.
Yeah. And I drove by that new Nolensville facility last Thursday. Boy, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, it's packed, and it's been used, and we're already finding out the areas we didn't do so good in. So they're wearing out the equipment, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
And our summer programs are beginning for our summer recreation programs. If the time this show airs, it may be a little late for you to call and get in our summer programs, but we encourage you to do through their Parks and Rec. 790-5700 is our office, and we'll transfer you to Parks and Rec.
And then
Swimming programs, rec programs, soccer, softball, baseball, you name it, we've got to offer.
Yeah, everything for every age. And with the budget, you've got the budget hearing coming up the second Monday in July.
July I think that's the 13th. We will start at 9 a.m. in the morning and have all the budgets approved. Hope we'll be through by supper time. This year may be a little bit more contentious than others because we're all committed to not having a tax increase. We will put that together, but it's been on several years since we've had a tax increase, but it's getting difficult because of growth and because of numbers.
And when people say, well, because we're growing, we got more taxes coming in, but I'm not sure that those taxes coming in override the cost of having
Never
people.
do. And of course, number one Achilles heel that all of us like to find a solution for is transportation, how to get around point A. None of us do a real good job of carpooling. We don't want to ride buses and trolleys, and we like our vehicles, and we just want to be able to get in and go over there like in the old days. But those days are about gone in Williamson County, so we've got to figure out traffic signalizations, walking, biking paths, things like that, then encourage people to do that rather than getting in their vehicle. We have over 100 vans now that transport people to and from work. We have 2 buses that go to Nashville and back, and so there's plenty of other means, but we still haven't figured out in morning time and at evening time how to get to and from work in a reasonable amount of time. It just doesn't happen.
No.
Our roads aren't designed. There's 2 lanes for the most part.
Yeah, and if there's an accident, then it shuts down everything.
But we are working on it. And state roads are state roads, city roads are city roads,
And
unincorporated county roads.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult battle, but
And I-65 should be completed
should be
fall?
not completely. It'll probably be summer before they finally finish up everything. But they've made some changes on Long Lane. And we're doing a lot of Triune intersection we'll be working on, the one-way bridge over Clovercroft. We're going to put signals on both ends. Hillsborough Road and Old Hillsborough Road, we're going to be working on that. So there's lots and lots of projects getting ready to go in Concord Road, and we're out of time.
And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
So far as combat is concerned, I think the stress is going to be the same in any kind of a war. World War I is called a shell shock. Then we came up to World War II and it became the psychoneuroses, and then we came into Korea and it was battle fatigue, and then we came to Vietnam where PTSD really started.
I had learned about stress in flight school, but combat stress is a lot different. You can become a detriment to your unit. You can become a problem. You can become a problem at home. You need to have the strength to go and get help.
You have to make them know that if they get in trouble, there's somebody to help them, and all they got to do is reach out. There's no stigma in it.
Ask your squad leader, platoon sergeant for help. If you get shot up, you don't hesitate about going for treatment, but a lot of times you can be wounded in your mind. There's absolutely nothing wrong by bringing that to other people's attention and asking for help.